Welcome once again to Washington and Me. I am your host, George Blaze, bringing you all the information, news, things going on, community voices, making sure we all stay informed on the issues, policies, and things going on around us that we have to stay informed of, things you're not going to necessarily hear in the everyday and your nightly local news, but you're going to hear it right here every week. Today, we're talking about entrepreneurs. We're talking about creatives, technologists, community builders, particularly in the African-American community here in the Seattle area, the past, the present, and the future. What's going on? What needs to be done? What are the plans? How does the future outlook look? Particularly now we're in electoral season where everyone's vying for the attention and vying for the votes of Black people right now. But what is in it for the Black people is the other question of it. Well, we'll try to get to some of these issues and more today. Joining me now is Wyking Garrett, co-founder of the Africatown Community Land Trust, as well as Black Dot Seattle. Mr. Garrett, it's good to talk to you today, man.
George, it's an honor. Thank you for, having me on to share about some of the work that we're, excited about that's happening here in Seattle with Africatown.
Well, before we get into the nuts and bolts of specifically what's going on here in Seattle, I mean, we only have a limited time here with you. And I just, there's stuff that's been on my mind the last couple of days, couple of weeks, that I just wanted to pick your brain about, because I know you have opinions and thoughts on some of it. Particularly, there's been this kind of back and forth going on with, Ice Cube came out and he's working with whoever's willing to come to the table to try and put something on the table to help Black people in some way. And people are trying to cancel him. Whereas if you look on the Democratic side on the ticket with the Biden and Harris ticket with their Lift Every Voice and Sing plan for Black America, the word Black only appears maybe 8 or 9 times in the whole document. People are really confused about what's going on here. I was wondering if you've been paying attention to this and what some of the thoughts you may have on where we're at in terms of who we bring to the table and what we're willing to risk sometimes.
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. Yes. I think that, Black people who were brought here from Africa and enslaved have a very unique relationship with the American enterprise, being that our labor capital, is what went into really building the wealth of what is now the wealthiest nation on the earth. And I think there's definitely a debt owed. I mean, that sweat equity, that labor capital, which was not allowed to be passed on through our own generations and through our own families, right? And so today we find ourselves at a significant disadvantage when it comes to wealth inequality, income inequality, and just general equity in this society where we've been, for the last 500 years. So I think it's definitely any political conversation has to include how do the scales get balanced? How do the damages that have been done over centuries and decades of policies and practices that intentionally and systematically disenfranchised the Black community economically, and in every other quality of life indicator, how do we make whole there, right? There's clearly damages that have been done. There's been many books and research that have validated this over and over and over again. But what we haven't seen is clear measures to repair the damages, So definitely there has to be a restoration. It has to deal with capital, equity, and redistribution of wealth that we help generate. And I think every single political agenda from local to federal should include that, because this has permeated the society as we know it. So I think that it is very important that we look at politics as a distribution of resources, value statement, and we have to be looking at what's coming back to our communities to live the lives that we deserve to live, right? And so I think, that in itself says that, we can't be lumped in, right? We have a unique experience, right? And there has to be unique solutions to remedy the damages that have been done and to bring about the equity that so many people are fighting for and feel is promised within the constructs of this society.
And, it's important that you say that, and I'm going to just reiterate it because it's one of the things that I came across that someone highlighted to me that I found really interesting to really observe is when we look at the Lift Every Voice and Sing Plan for Black America, which is supposed to be the big solution coming from the Democratic side. When you have a document or a policy of this size and grandeur of importance, and the word Black appears less than the words people of color or minorities, to me, that triggers me thinking, what's going on here? How come every time we try to do something, everyone else, we get back at the back of another line? It's like another line forms, and then Black people are at the back of that line once again. And I think we have to be really mindful of really paying attention to the words being used when referring to building economy and building communities for Black people.
Absolutely. I think someone once told me that one word can change a nation, right? And so we do definitely have to pay attention to those things. And again, we just have to be sure that what we came for is what we're leaving with, right? I mean, in 1967, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote a book, Why We Can't Wait, right? And ever since then, each time it seems that we're waiting, and like you said, we're being pushed to the back of the line as new classes are created that didn't, that weren't even in existence at the time of the grievances and the harms began as it relates to Black people in America who were enslaved and whose labor capital really was the investment, right? The land is the land, but it's what the human interaction with the land is that produce, the industry and the wealth of those industries that have continued to be recycled and passed on through generations, through estates, et cetera, where our community has not. And even when we did make a way out of no way and build, Black Wall Streets in Tulsa and Rosewood and Durham, we see how those were attacked and undermined. And then, through policies such as the Federal Highway Administration and really weaponizing highways through many thriving Black commercial districts and neighborhoods, redlining. I mean, the list is long of the intentional, again, systematic disenfranchisement and suppression of Blacks' economic and socioeconomic development within the country and the society. And now is the time, I think, right now, and we need to continuously stay focused on that. Otherwise, we will continuously be vulnerable to situations such as the COVID, which is now disproportionately affecting our communities because of pre-existing conditions, and not just pre-existing health conditions, but the pre-existing socioeconomic factors, which really amount to a modern day Jim Crow apartheid reality across, America and right here in Seattle as well. In Martin Luther King Jr. County, the only county I think named after Dr. Martin Luther King, and we have a reality of Jim Crow apartheid. And this is what we're working hard to remedy and move away from towards a new normal rooted in equity. And it's going to take bold policy interventions, bold and unprecedented investments to begin to balance out some of these things that we're speaking to.
People may be surprised to hear or understand some of the historical realities when we're talking about right here in Seattle. I mean, the Central District of Seattle, in many senses, was founded by Black people, and yet Black people are being pushed out as things move forward. If you can give us a little background for people who may be ignorant of it, what's the history of Black people in the Central District?
Sure. A Black pioneer by the name of William Gross, who had migrated to Seattle in the 1860s. He was an entrepreneur, restaurateur, hotelier, and a developer. He bought 12 acres of land in what is now the Central District in 1882 and began to parcel off his land to allow other Blacks to settle. And that's what established the Central District as a Black community. Before Washington was even a state, it was still just a territory at that time. And as more migration took place, particularly the Great Migration, fleeing the Jim Crow post-slavery conditions of the South, seeking better quality of life and economic opportunities around World War II, Blacks like my grandparents came around with the wartime economy at Boeing and the shipyards. And when they came here, they met a different type of Jim Crow in the form of housing covenants, which restricted where Blacks could rent and own land. And therefore, that further concentrated the Black population in this area in the Central District of Seattle.
I wonder if, you could speak to a little bit of, over the past, 10 to 20 years, we've seen this boom in terms of technology and the tech industry in the area and in the region that you would think would be analogous to economic development and opportunity for everybody who lives in the region. But it seems like certain types of people are simply being pushed out.
Absolutely. We are, the Central District is probably 10 minutes to 15 minutes away from Microsoft, from Amazon, and many other tech companies that have emerged over the last 30 years in this region. And yet we have not participated in this growth, right? And we know that innovation and entrepreneurial spirit and innovation really being making a way out of no way or problem solving is something that is very much a part of our legacy globally as African people of African descent, but also specifically in this country as we were doing the work, and therefore many of the inventions to make the work easier naturally were produced by the Blacks that were doing that work, and being suppressed economically has always created conditions where we had to figure it out, right? We had to work it out. We had to have a job, 2 jobs, side, hustle, side business, right? And so that is prime, right? For being a part of this economy, right? And then when you think about, again, in innovation and the creativity, we had a very strong jazz legacy here with Ray Charles and Quincy Jones and many others getting their start here. And then someone like Jimi Hendrix growing up in this community as well. I mean, if what he did with the guitar wasn't innovation, I'm really not sure, what is, right? And so again, there has been a systematic exclusion, in terms of second-rate education, school to prison pipeline, which has, again, really kept our community from fully participating and bringing our brilliance and our genius to the table, among others, as this economy, this economic sector has grown here, the knowledge-based economy. So that's one of the primary problems that we're seeking to address with Africatown, with Black Dot, and the development of our innovation district, the innovation hub, which would be really the epicenter and steward of Black cultural innovation, entrepreneur, and Black tech ecosystem, right? And so these are the things that we're working to connect our, talent, harness that, and bring it to bear as Seattle has become really a mecca or center of solving problems for the global economy. And we know that the global South also is very dark, very much, of the melanated groups across the world. And so why should we not be participating in, solving these problems that many of us face?
When we look at particularly what's going on in many parts of Africa right now, where because of the technological advances that have happened over the last 10, 15 years in terms of wireless technology, cell phones, apps, and all these things, many thriving communities and cities and communities in Africa have leapfrogged in terms of technology. They're not having to go through all the steps that we've had to go through here in America in terms of, wire technology, landline phones, and all this stuff. And they're already there. The technology's on the ground, and the genius and the innovation of African people is ready to explode and ready to thrive. In terms of making inroads with people who are entrepreneurs and technologists and community builders here, how do we begin to make those inroads right now and to jump in when it's hot?
That's a great question, and I 100% agree with your analysis of that circumstance. This is exactly what we're doing with, our Africatown Innovation District and what we're now the William Grove Center for Cultural Innovation and Enterprise. Our goal is to really make fertile ground to have a hub for genius and brilliance and entrepreneurial spirit and creatives of the African diaspora to be able to grow, connect, learn, share, right? Whether it's those that live in this neighborhood, those that are coming here to work at technology firms that are here, or coming here to go to school, or coming here just to do business, right? Whether you're here for a week for business or you're, moving your family here, we need to have such hubs that are then connected with the global African diaspora around the very opportunities that you're speaking of in terms of emerging technologies and really just solving problems of the future as the global South develops and as we redevelop our communities here. And imagine what is the next iteration of Black communities, of Black settlements here in America. We're really kind of in a third forced migration with gentrification from being brought here to work on plantations, primarily in the South and the Southeast, fleeing that to the North, to the industry seeking opportunities, being kind of quarantined or reserved to the urban centers across the nation. And now that property is desired again, we're being pushed out, and we have really what we saw more so in apartheid South Africa, which is the suburbanization of the poverty. And so we need to think about what will our future look like. And again, that's a part of what the Africatown Initiative is as an asset-based community development initiative to imagine and design and build communities that allow for the best, the beauty and the brilliance of our community to grow and thrive.
Clearly, and I've been in some conversations, when we're talking, particularly in the Black community, about tech incubators and how this work and how people of means can jump in and to be a part of it and make these things work. I find an analogy of a buddy of mine owns a barber shop. So he takes care of the rent, the facilities. You got Maj, he has a chair over there that he rents. Omar rents a chair over there. They're paying rent on their chairs and bringing their skills to the table and making whatever they can with the time they have in a rental. And a lot of times it's as simple as that. When we think about a tech incubator, you don't have to be a code writer to rent a space and to provide the overhead, the Wi-Fi, a couple of computer terminals, what have you, and have skilled people just come in and you sit and rent this chair. And if you do a website or you do a podcast or whatever you do, we just take a cut of it. I mean, it's really a simple concept.
It really is. I mean, it's the same concept on a larger, smaller scale as a mall, right? Co-locating, right, for mutual benefit, right? The sum of the whole is greater than the parts. So when we think about, tech incubator or co-working space, we're really thinking about facilitating community that allows for connections, that allow for collaboration, it's really a principle of cooperative economics, right? And we're reducing the barrier or the burden on each individual by coming in collectively. And also, again, enhancing our access to intellectual capital that we all bring to the table, to resources, to networks, right? And so, breaking those silos and bringing more so that everyone can also take more from. So yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly that sometimes the packaging, right, the naming of something makes it seem, foreign, right? When we say tech incubator and you're thinking about all this coding, but a co-working space, a barbershop is a co-working space, just like you said, And so these are the models that we also have to look at, going forward around cooperative economics. How can we be more strategic in leveraging our individual, again, resources for greater collective benefit?
Another large part of the conversation, particularly when we're talking about communicating with younger people who are going to be the next generation to jump in, to be the next level of entrepreneurs, community builders, and technologists, is that right now you have a generation of young people that are using technology and social media for fun. And yet they're following people who are generating millions and millions of dollars off of them having fun. And they're not seeing for themselves that this tool in your hand, you could be making that money too, but you're just chasing after these stream chasers.
Absolutely. I agree again with that. And, our, principle, or integral to our work with Africatown and our community economic development strategies is really moving us from consumer to producer, right? I mean, so many times we're setting the trends. You look at, social media usage. You look at, mobile phone usage. We are over indexing, right, in terms of on the consumer side, but we're very, very small as it relates to the producer side. This is one of the initiatives that, just kind of naturally generated. We have a Young Geniuses collab, and this came about when we were working with young people around STEM, and every time they got a break, they went on the computer to play video games. So we said, well, hey, can we leverage that to teach them how to make the video games, to produce the video games, right? And so again, the same thing that you're saying, we're consuming, we're on social media, we are generating content. How do you then begin to leverage the content that you're generating or come up with new solutions based on your unique experiences and preferences collectively, right? Then create those solutions as products, right? And so, or services, right? And so this is, again, what we seek to facilitate, just the prompts, just the conversation to open people's mind to what's possible as we move into the future, and look at where are we actually going to position ourselves in the global economy.
Wyking, I think we spend a lot of time allowing ourselves to just be lulled and to be entertained by stuff. And we don't spend enough time together in groups and collectives, really dissecting and discussing stuff that's going on right here in front of us that are teaching moments. I look back to when Sony emails got hacked, and it revealed the behind the scenes conversations behind Kevin Hart, as Kevin Hart was trying to negotiate his deal. And he was saying that, here, I've built my Instagram audience of 4 million people. Y'all got to pay me to post anything on Instagram. It's not free. I'm not going to do it for free. And they're back talking behind him, and we're sabotaging his career over that. Or move forward, even if we're talking about what's going on with Kanye trying to reveal what's going on with his contract and the honesty of his slave contract that he is in with Universal, and what that's about, and how he wants to free people from making those mistakes. Or look at what Joe Budden is going through now when he broke up with Spotify, and they tried to destroy him personally because he was highlighting the fact that it's about the data, it's about the numbers. They won't reveal the metrics to you. They're stealing from you. Every time someone tells the truth in our community about how this technology stuff works, it seems like someone tries to destroy us. And we don't talk enough about the fact that these stories are important and what we can learn from them.
Taking control of, distribution channels, the means of production, the vertical, the supply chain, right? Being vertically integrated. I think Nipsey talked about that. And having conversations, because this is really not rocket science when you really start to think about just basically supply and demand. And if we're driving demand and we're creating, again, the content that supplies that, then the last thing I think for us to do is to just basically control the channels and the means of producing such, right? And that will create greater economic benefit to our communities, and we will not be speaking from a deficit so much. I mean, I think it's the same thing in the music industry. Recently, watch, Master P's story, and, again, these contracts that are set up. You're speaking about Kanye, but I think it was the same thing in the urban clothing, so many places where, we drive popular culture, which then creates economic demand in the form of trends, but yet we don't see the results or the benefits of that in the communities where it's produced. Again, they speak about Black communities being places of deficit, and that's one thing we wanted to change the narrative on. But when we think about just music, jazz, R&B, soul, hip hop, rock, everything that to hip hop, to electronic, but where are the buildings that are created to facilitate those economics in these communities where this has been produced at, right? And so that's what I think you're pointing to, the opportunity that we need to seize to do that. And if we're going to have any conversations about equity, then they should be leading towards, ownership. For us, the key word in, equity or equitable development is ownership, equity in the forms of ownership. But we are going to keep pushing forward. And I think the important thing is to raise these issues so that people can face reality and then make a clear choice on how we move forward.
You are absolutely right on that. I got about a minute left here with you. What's on your wish list in terms of what you need next for Africatown Community Land Trust and Black Dot to scale up to where you want to be in the next 5 years? What's on your wish list?
Absolutely. Great question. We are working on $1 billion community development fund to acquire, develop land and facilitate the business development that we need. We know many of our businesses, whether it's contractors or commercial tenants that would come into our commercial spaces, are at a deficit with their access to capital. So right now we're focused on a $1 billion Build Africatown fund here. In the meantime, we have Africatown Plaza, which is another mixed-use project, and the William Gross Center for Cultural Innovation to be that innovation hub to steward our ecosystem, our innovation district. So those are the primary things that we are focused on right now, just making sure that, there are Black people in the future. We want to answer that question, are there Black people in the future, with a yes, right? And then we want to have those Black people in the future thriving and living their full lives and recognizing and expressing their full humanity and not being relegated to really a second class citizenship and socioeconomic status here in the city and in the society.
Well, I tell you what, if we don't accomplish that, then we all going to be living in Lovecraft country. Wyking Garrett, thank you so much. Africatown Community Land Trust at Black Dot, Seattle. I wish you the best of success as we move forward in the coming months. I want to check back in with you. If you have any programming and stuff that we can talk about, we're going to bring it up here. I'd like to get like you and Tariq Nasheed and Professor Black Truth in a room together, and we just like put a document together or something.
I hear that. And I just want to let people know they can follow us, Africatown SCA, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And for more information, you can go to africatownlandtrust.org or black.seattle.com to find out more about Black Dot. So yes, definitely tap in, don't tap out. That's our motto here.
All right, Wyking, thank you so much for your time today, sir.
George, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Washington and Me.